Hello and welcome back. This is Leanne the lawyer. Very excited. We're getting to the end of our course and things should start to have sort of come together for you at this point. You're becoming more and more familiar with the idea of searching the title, things that you might be looking for, things that are good about titles and things that are not so good. So this video is going to be about searching for defects. So we're going to look for deeds of trust, any heirs, any judgments, liens, pending litigation, any kind of special proceedings or miscellaneous things that might pertain only to our property, kind of little weird things that might crop up. UCC filings, those are mostly going to deal with folks that have businesses associated with their properties or that have businesses. And vital statistics, things like birth and death and marriage records. Sometimes we can use those during our investigation to help us better understand this chain of title. So how do we do this? Well, when we did our chain of title search, we found individuals that had owned this property. And what you're going to do is take each and every individual in that chain of title and you're going to do a search on them. Now, we have been searching Adrienne Brown's property, so I'm going to go ahead and put her name in there. And we've done that in this series of videos, so you should be familiar with her and her property. Now, I typed in her entire name to the search, but just know that sometimes people spell names wrong, so I would do a search that had A.D. Brown or A.D.R. Brown or something to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Maybe her name was misspelled. We're not going to do that in this video, but I wanted to let you know that that is a possibility and something that you should be looking for. Now I clicked the search button. Everything that is associated with Adrienne Brown in this electronic data system has come up. You notice I have all of these checked, okay? And also I have a blank space here, which means I'm searching for every type of document that is in this list. So that's pretty much going to cover everything that we could possibly be looking for. So what do we have here? What did we find? Well, this first one listed is a deed, and that's the deed that we know and love, that we've seen several times. I'm not going to click on it because you've seen it. Down here at the bottom, we have this birth certificate that came up. Now, this is a birth certificate from 1989, and it's for Adrienne Nicole Brown. Now, our Adrienne, her middle initial is M, so we know this is not her birth certificate. But what if that's her daughter? Most likely it isn't, because most families don't name their daughters after the mothers, but it is a possibility. She could be a potential heir. So that would be something that you might want to investigate. Since Adrienne Brown is the current owner, you could ask, do you have any children? When you click on the little people here for a birth certificate, you simply just see, it's going to take a sec, there it is. You simply just see that it is a birth certificate and the date and the book and page number where you can find it in the birth records. But moving on to things that we know are associated with Adrienne Brown. We've got 2 deeds of trust and 2 assignments. Now, if you forget what these document type abbreviations stand for, you know you can always click on document type and you can find what that abbreviation means. Now, when the deed was transferred, we see on that same date we had 2 deeds of trust. Well, let's look at the first one. We're going to click on this button here. It says View. And it's going to pull up our deed of trust. Now you can see this is 11 pages long. We're not going to go through the whole thing. All we need is what is on the first page here for the purposes of this video. Obviously, you would go through the entire thing to make sure that it was valid deed of trust during your title exam. But here we see that Adrienne Brown, a single woman who is the borrower, okay, now they always have trustees listed in here. You really don't need to know too much about those trustees. They're usually lawyers or people that work at the bank. What's important here is the WesBanco is the lender. So you have Adrienne as the borrower, you have WesBanco as the lender, and it was in the amount of $147,000, and that will be due and payable January 1st, 2044. So you know she's making payments on that. So to buy this property, she borrowed this money from WesBanco, and this is attached to this property. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're going to close out of that. So that's basically, in West Virginia, a deed of trust shows that a mortgage was taken out on the property. But why do we have a second one? Let's click on this second one. Same date. And this deed of trust was made between Adrienne Brown and the West Virginia Housing Development Fund, who is the lender. So she borrowed $5,200 from the West Virginia Housing Development Fund, and it is a second lien deed of trust. So in order for her to come up with the entire amount of money to purchase that property, she had to borrow money both from WesBanco and from the West Virginia Housing Development Fund. So this one happens to be a second lien, which means she would have to pay off the first one, the larger one, to WesBanco has priority over this one. So when it comes time to pay those off, she'd pay off that first one, the larger one first, this one second. Okay, so those are the two loans that she took out associated with that property. Very important to mark that down when you do your checklist whenever you're doing your title exam. Now, you've got two assignments, one in 2014 and one in 2015. Let's look at the one in 2014. An assignment is where a mortgage company assigns their interest in that loan and getting that loan paid back. They sell that to someone else. So let's see what happened here. So in 2014, we've got the West Virginia Housing Development Fund has been assigned, if you read through this, has been assigned by WesBanco the $147,000 loan, $147,283. So WesBanco is no longer involved. They sold this loan to the West Virginia Housing Development Fund. So now she's going to be making her payments to them and not to WesBanco. Again, we must note that. And the second assignment is where the West Virginia Housing Development Fund, as the assigner, assigned their interest in this $5,200 to United Bank. So that's very, very interesting that this happened. So now she owes the $147,000 to West Virginia Housing Development Fund instead of WesBanco, but she no longer owes them the $5,200. She owes that to United Bank. Okay, and all of this was recorded, documented down at the courthouse, and that is why it is here. And all of these would need to be noted on your title exam. Before we were to buy this property from Adrian Brown, all of this would have to be settled. Does that make sense? Good. Okay, now we would do this for every person in the chain of title. Okay, so we know the person who owned that before Adrian was Dale Snyder. And I'm going to put his name in there, and you're going to see a ton of documents come up. Obviously, we don't have time in this video to go through all of these, but you would. You would go through all of these that are associated with Dale Snyder during a particular time period and anything that pertains to the property. Okay? Now, these folks, nothing really came up that was a judgment or anything. So let's just look and see what judgments look like. So I'm just going to click on judgments, which means I'm only going to be searching for judgments. Take all the names out of there and click on search. This is going to pull up all of the judgments that are currently electronically available to us. Okay, I'm just going to pick this one down here, this Yamaha one. Okay, let's click on it. This shows you that this is the lawsuit. It's WBOY-TV against James Johnson, okay, in the amount of $5,536.75, $57.25, and that is how much is owed, okay? But you can also see up here, this was released in book 217, page 446. So you would make note, if this was impacting your title exam, you would make note that that this was owed, but that it was released. Okay, that there was a judgment against this particular individual, but that it was released, and it was released in that amount. Now, you can tell the ones that have been released because they have a second view button. Okay, so if I click on that, it tells me it's cross-referenced in the release book and for what amount. These ones up here, like this very first one, have not yet been released. And when you look at the document, there's no stamp up here that says released. and it shows you the lawsuit. You can read the abstract of judgment, the amount that's owed. That's a big one, $74,444.75, and costs of $205. So you can see that if you had property that involved Thornton Gillis, you'd have an issue here with these judgments. And you can do the same thing with all of the different document types that you would need to search. Now, let's say you're looking for something that might affect an estate, okay? Like the appointment and affidavit of heirs. If you're asked to research heirs, then you're going to want to look for pretty much anything that can be found in the estate book. Okay, and you see how I have a estate book over here? So we might look at the AOH section to see if we find anything with our particular individual. Okay, that's pretty much it. If you see any death records come up or any birth records, you know what those mean, hopefully. If somebody that you're an interested party is an interested party in the property and they've died, that has impacts on the property, and you're going to want to make sure that you note that. All right, well, good luck with your assignment. Have a great day.